The mansion always smelled like money and lemon polish. Every morning, Mabel Cruz arrived at the Russo estate before sunrise, long before anyone else woke up. She would swipe her keycard, hang her thin coat on the same golden hook by the service door, and step into a world that didn't see her. Her sneakers made no sound on the marble floors. She moved through rooms of glass and silence, spaces too clean to feel alive. Sometimes she stopped to look at the chandeliers overhead, glittering like cages made of light, then kept walking. She didn't have time to dream about the kind of life that could afford a ceiling like that. Mabel's job was simple: make the mansion perfect, make herself invisible. She scrubbed until her hands were red, polished silver that gleamed brighter than her future, and arranged fresh flowers that cost more than her weekly pay. She learned how to walk quietly enough that even the security cameras seemed to forget her. There was a kind of peace in that invisibility. It meant safety. It meant she didn't have to answer questions. At least, that's what she told herself. Dante Russo, the boss, was a presence Mabel only knew through whispers and footsteps. When he came home, the air in the house changed. Everyone moved faster, quieter. Even the lights seemed dimmer. He was rarely seen, but his name carried weight, like thunder that hadn't yet broken. Mabel sometimes caught his reflection in polished surfaces, a tall man in dark suits, his hair slicked back, his expression unreadable. People called him the gentleman. But the staff also said that behind that calm voice was a man who could freeze a room with a single glance. He never looked her way. And that was exactly how she wanted it. Her sister, Maya, worked in the kitchen, loud, warm, and full of life. They were opposites in every way. Mabel avoided notice. Maya could make the entire staff laugh while chopping onions. After their shifts, the sisters would take the subway back to their small apartment in the Bronx. It wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, a flickering light in the hallway, neighbors who argued through the walls, but it was theirs. They would sit on their worn-out couch, shoes off, sharing a single bowl of noodles. "You need to stop working doubles," Maya said one night, pressing a cold drink into her sister's hand. Mabel smiled tiredly. "And you need to stop saying that." "I mean it, Mab. You look like you haven't slept in a week." "I'm fine." "You always say that." Maya leaned forward. "But you're not. You're killing yourself for people who wouldn't even look you in the eye." Mabel's voice softened. "I'm doing this so we can breathe, Maya. So we can stop seeing red letters in the mail." Mom's hospital bills didn't disappear just because she did. Silence filled the space for a moment. Maya looked down, her tone gentle now. "I just don't want you to break before we get out of this." Mabel's lips curved slightly. "Too late. I'm already cracked." They both laughed, but it wasn't really funny. The next morning came too early. Mabel arrived at the mansion at 6 a.m., slipped on her uniform, grey polo, black slacks, practical shoes, and started polishing the staircase banister. The wood gleamed like glass. As she worked, she heard voices drifting from the study. Deep, low, male. The kind that carried power even when spoken softly. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but sometimes you couldn't help it. "They crossed into our street again," one of the voices said. "You want me to handle it?" A pause. Then Dante's voice, calm and sharp as cut glass. "No mistakes this time. Make them understand what happens when they touch my city." Mabel froze, cloth clutched in her hand. She didn't understand exactly what he meant, but she didn't need to. It was just another reminder. This was a world where you didn't ask questions. That night, the rain began around 9. By the time Mabel finished scrubbing the last bathroom, thunder rolled over the city. She rubbed her aching wrists, checked the clock, and exhaled. Maya poked her head out of the kitchen, hair tied up messily, smelling faintly of herbs. "You ready?" "Almost." They left together through the service door, huddling under a tiny umbrella that was barely holding itself together. "You're off tomorrow, right?" Maya asked. "If they don't call me in." "You'll come home early?" "I'll try." Maya shook her head, half smiling. "One of these days, you'll have to let yourself rest." "Maybe after I pay off $47,000 in medical debt," Mabel said dryly. Maya laughed. "You and that number. You talk about it like it's your boyfriend. At least the number can't leave." The rain made the world shimmer, puddles reflecting gold and red lights from the street. Maya's phone buzzed. She looked at it, frowning. It's Leo. He says his roommate's car broke down. I'll go help him jump it. You sure you're okay walking alone? It's 3 blocks, Mabel said, tucking her hair under her hood. I'll be fine. Go. You sure? Positive. I walk this street every night. Maya hesitated. Okay, text me when you get home. She ran off toward the garage, waving over her shoulder. Mabel watched her disappear, then turned toward the street. The rain fell harder now, soaking through her thin jacket. She pulled her hood lower and started walking. The first block was fine. The second, quieter. Most of the stores were closed, the bakery dark, the florist shuttered, the small pharmacy still flickering with a tired neon sign. She told herself not to be nervous. This was Dante Russo's territory. Everyone said his streets were safe. Still, the city felt different tonight, too quiet, too still. Mabel quickened her pace. That's when she saw them. 2 figures stepped out from the alley ahead. Both men wore dark jackets. Their faces were shadowed beneath the streetlights. Her steps faltered. One of them smiled. Evening, sweetheart. Rough weather, huh? Mabel gripped the strap of her bag tighter. Evening, she said softly, trying to keep walking. The man moved to block her path. Where you headed so late? Home. His grin widened. Pretty girl like you shouldn't walk alone out here. Dangerous world. She took a small step back. Please, I don't want any trouble. No trouble, he said. Just your bag and your phone. Quick and easy. Her stomach dropped. I don't have much. The second man, bigger, silent, stepped closer, his shadow swallowing hers. Mabel's heartbeat roared in her ears. She handed over her bag with shaking hands. The man rummaged through it, frowning at the contents. Wallet. Cheap. Phone. Old. Damn. He looked at her again, then his gaze fell on the faint logo stitched on her uniform. A golden R. The Russo crest. Wait a minute, he said slowly. You work up there, don't you? The big house on the corner. Mabel's mouth went dry. No. He grabbed her collar, pulling her close enough that she could smell the cigarette smoke on his breath. Don't lie. I've seen that logo before. The taller man muttered something in another language, a single name that made the first one nod. Russo, he said, his smile twisting cruelly. Perfect. Her hands trembled. I don't know what you're talking about. I just clean. Yeah. He tilted his head. Then you can deliver a message for your boss. The next moments blurred rain, shouting, her knees hitting wet pavement. The world spun in flashes of color and sound before going dark. When she opened her eyes, she was on the ground. The rain was still falling. Her body hurt in ways she couldn't name. Her bag was gone. Her phone, too. Her cheek stung, her ribs ached when she breathed. The world felt tilted, wrong. Through the downpour, she could see the subway sign glowing ahead, her lifeline. One step. Then another. By the time she reached her apartment door, her clothes were soaked and streaked with dirt. Her key slipped twice before she got it into the lock. Maya was waiting inside, half asleep on the couch. She sat up instantly. Mab. What happened? Mabel tried to smile. Nothing. Just rain. Rain doesn't make your face bleed. Maya jumped up, horror washing over her features. Oh my God, Mabel. I'm fine, she whispered, even as her knees buckled. Maya caught her. No, you're not. We're going to the hospital. We can't. Mabel. We can't afford it, Maya. Her sister's voice cracked. I don't care about the money. You need help. I just need to rest. Please. They argued quietly for a few more minutes before Maya gave up, guiding Mabel to the bathroom. Under the bright light, the damage looked worse, bruises forming along her ribs, a swollen eye, a split lip. Mabel stared at herself in the mirror. For a moment, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Maya cleaned the blood gently, whispering, "Who did this?" Mabel shook her head. Just men. Strangers. But in her mind, she heard it again, that name. Russo. They hadn't just wanted her bag. They wanted to make a point. She didn't sleep much that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the alley again, the flash of a smile, the glint of rain on metal, the sound of her own heartbeat. By morning, she'd decided, she couldn't miss work. The hospital would ask questions. The police would ask more. And none of them could protect her from the kind of men who used the word Russo like a curse. So she covered her bruises with makeup. Layer after layer. Long sleeves, high collar. When Maya saw her leaving, she frowned. You can't go like that. I have to. The bills don't stop just because I got hurt. Maya's eyes filled with tears. You're going to break. Mabel forced a weak smile. Then I'll break quietly. The mansion looked exactly as it always did, tall, silent, beautiful. Inside, the air was warm, scented with coffee and lemon oil. She could pretend nothing had happened. She could be invisible again. But when she passed a mirror in the hallway, she saw the faint bruising beneath her makeup, the way her left side still bent in pain, and knew the truth. She was cracked open now, the kind of broken you couldn't hide forever. And she didn't know that by sundown, Dante Russo himself would notice the one thing he'd never seen before. Her. The next morning, the world looked painfully normal. Sunlight slid through the blinds of Mabel's small bedroom, catching the cracks in the paint and the peeling corners of a photo stuck to her mirror, her mother smiling in a hospital gown, Maya on one side, Mabel on the other. The clock read 6:03. Her whole body ached. Every breath felt like glass scraping her ribs, but the thought of missing a day's pay made her stomach twist harder than the pain did. She pushed herself out of bed, wincing, and moved toward the bathroom. Maya was already there, brushing her hair, eyes heavy with worry. You're not going to work. Mabel's voice was steady. I am. Mabel, you can barely stand. I can stand enough. Maya crossed her arms. You need rest, a doctor, something. Mabel's hands trembled as she reached for the concealer. What I need is money. If I miss even one shift, I can't cover rent and the next hospital payment. So unless you've got $47,000 hidden under your pillow, I'm going. Her sister's anger cracked into helpless fear. You could have died. I didn't, Mabel said softly, patting makeup onto her bruised cheek. So I'll work. End of story. Maya stood behind her in the mirror, jaw clenched. If they come after you again. They won't, Mabel interrupted. They got what they wanted. Which was what? The question hung heavy. Mabel didn't answer. She couldn't. She finished dressing in silence, pulling on a long-sleeved grey shirt and a high-neck jacket. Every movement made her ribs protest, but she ignored it. She'd learned how to function on pain. When she stepped outside, the city looked different, sharper somehow, like it was watching her. The Russo mansion stood tall and immaculate, indifferent to the small woman standing in its shadow. Mabel swiped her card, stepped inside, and was greeted by the smell of coffee, lemon oil, and luxury. Everything gleamed as always, the marble floors, the gold fixtures, the endless glass windows that overlooked a skyline she'd never be part of. She was supposed to start with the library that day, but every movement pulled at her ribs. She worked slowly, carefully, polishing the brass handles, dusting the shelves, trying not to let her shaking hands show. Every so often, she caught her reflection in the glass, one eye slightly swollen, foundation doing its best to hide the truth. The world might not see her pain, but her body remembered every second of it. By noon, her energy was gone. She slipped into the linen closet, sitting on a stool for a few stolen minutes. Her heart thudded hard with each breath. She wanted to cry but didn't dare. Not here. Not where the walls had ears. A soft voice broke through her thoughts. Mabel? She startled. Maya stood in the doorway, holding a basket of folded napkins. You look worse, Maya said bluntly. I'm fine. Maya raised an eyebrow. You said that last night when you were bleeding. Mabel managed a weak smile. It worked then, didn't it? Her sister frowned. Did you at least file a police report? Mabel's fingers tightened around the cloth she was folding. I will. Mabel. After work, she lied. Right now, I just need to finish the third floor. Maya sighed, pressing her lips together. I hate this place sometimes. Mabel looked up. Why? Because the man who owns it controls half the city, and somehow we still can't afford a doctor. That earned a tired laugh. Welcome to America. They worked quietly for a moment, folding and stacking. Then Maya said, if you see him today, just stay out of sight, okay? You don't need him noticing. Mabel nodded, though something inside her whispered that hiding forever wasn't going to be possible anymore. She made it to the 3rd floor by early afternoon. The pain was constant now, dull, but deep. The last room on her list was Dante Russo's private study. Normally, she cleaned it on Fridays, but Franco, the older house manager, had told her to handle it early since the boss would be away in meetings all day. That was the only reason she dared step inside. The study smelled of leather, cedar, and faint traces of smoke. Books lined the walls in neat, perfect rows. The large desk gleamed like a mirror, papers stacked with military precision. Mabel had cleaned this room 100 times without ever feeling like she belonged in it. Today, something about being here alone made her uneasy. She dusted the window ledges, her movements slow and methodical. When her ribs twinged, she bit the inside of her cheek and kept going. It was easier to focus on the shine of wood than on the ache in her body. She was reaching for the last corner of the window when the sound of footsteps behind her froze her in place. Not staff. Too heavy. Too certain. She turned and found Dante Russo standing in the doorway. He wasn't supposed to be home. Every rule she'd learned about survival in this house told her to keep her head down, say nothing, and vanish before he even noticed she was there. But his eyes, sharp and dark like polished amber, had already locked onto her. Mabel Cruz, he said, his voice low, almost conversational. You're not scheduled in here today. She swallowed hard. Mr. Russo. Franco said, he asked me to clean early. He nodded once, stepping into the room. Franco said that? Yes, sir. Dante moved closer. He wasn't loud, but every step he took felt deliberate, like he'd already calculated the distance between them. His gaze swept over her, not in the way men on the street looked at her, but differently. Colder. Sharper. As if he was reading her like a report. Then his expression changed. What happened to your face? Her heart stopped. She turned slightly toward the window, pretending to adjust a curtain. Nothing. I'm fine. Mabel. His tone deepened, not louder, but heavier. Look at me. She did. Slowly. The sunlight fell across her face, catching the faint bruising under her makeup. For a long moment, Dante said nothing. His eyes darkened. His jaw tightened just enough to betray something beneath the surface. How did that happen? I fell, she said quietly. Where? The subway stairs. It was raining. He took another step forward. Which stairs? She blinked, confused. What? You said you fell. Which stairs? The ones by Christopher Street. His eyes narrowed. Left or right side? She stared at him, bewildered. Does it matter? Answer the question. She hesitated. Left. He tilted his head slightly. Interesting. What's interesting? You're favoring your left side when you breathe. Protecting your ribs. His gaze flicked over her with precision, like he was gathering evidence. So, you fell down the left side, hit your face, split your lip, and bruised your ribs. Her voice shook. Yes. That's a very consistent fall. He was close now. Too close. The air between them seemed to hum. Show me your arms, he said. What? Show me your arms, Mabel. Her breath caught. Mr. Russo. Now. His tone wasn't cruel, but it carried command. The kind of authority people didn't question. With trembling fingers, she pushed up her right sleeve first, faint scratches, nothing serious. Then the left. The bruises there told the truth she'd been trying to hide. Finger-shaped marks in shades of purple and yellow. Dante's expression went still. Too still. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet enough to make her shiver. Who did this to you? Her mouth went dry. No one. Don't lie to me. I fell, she whispered again. Falling doesn't leave fingerprints. He turned slightly, pressing a button on the phone at his desk. Franco, my office. Now. Please, she said quickly, panic rising. Don't make trouble. I don't want. He cut her off without looking at her. Sit down. She stayed frozen. His gaze flicked to her, firm, unreadable. That wasn't a request. Her legs moved on their own. She sat in one of the leather chairs by the desk, every nerve screaming at her to disappear. The silence stretched, broken only by the ticking of a clock. When Franco entered, Dante didn't look up. 3 blocks from here, he said flatly. Thursday night. 2 men. They saw her uniform. Franco froze. His eyes moved from Dante to Mabel's bruised face, understanding dawning. You're sure? She confirmed it. Mabel shook her head quickly. I didn't confirm anything. Please, don't. Franco's jaw tightened. That's Costa's men. The Serbians. They've been testing territory again. Dante leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing to slits. Names. One of them might be Darren Cole. The other unknown. Possibly from Costa's South crew. Find them, Dante said. His voice didn't rise, but the air seemed to thicken around him. I want them here before midnight. Franco nodded and left without another word. Mabel gripped the edge of her seat, her pulse wild. You don't have to do this. I don't even know who they were. Dante looked at her finally. His expression softened, barely. You were attacked because you work for me. On my street. That makes it my problem. I'm just a maid, she whispered. You work in my house, he said evenly. That means you're one of mine. The words sank into her like heat and ice at the same time. I don't want anyone hurt because of me. Then you should have told me sooner. I was scared. He nodded once, as if that explained everything. Fear is natural. Staying silent isn't. He moved from behind his desk and crouched in front of her, close enough that she could see the faint scar near his temple, the calm calculation in his eyes. You've been here 8 months, he said quietly. I notice things. How you never complain. How you take extra shifts. How you fix the flowers when no one's looking. Her throat tightened. I just do my job. You do more than that. His tone was unreadable, something dangerous threaded with something almost gentle. And that's why this matters. He stood, straightened his sleeves, and spoke again, softer now. You'll stay here tonight. What? No. I can't. My sister. Franco will arrange it. You'll both stay. Until this is handled. I can't just. This isn't negotiable. His calm was absolute. The kind that left no room for rebellion. Mabel pressed her hands together, trying to breathe evenly. Why are you doing this? He paused at the door, his profile framed by the light from the hallway. Because someone thought they could touch what's mine, he said. And I need to remind them they can't. Then he was gone. The silence he left behind felt heavier than before. Mabel sat there, staring at the closed door, her pulse still racing. She didn't know which terrified her more, the men who had attacked her, or the man who had just vowed to make them disappear. The mansion didn't sleep that night. Somewhere behind its marble walls, engines growled, doors slammed, voices murmured into radios. Mabel heard it all from the guest room on the 2nd floor where Franco had shown her hours earlier. The bed was too soft. The sheets smelled faintly of jasmine and Polish. Everything around her whispered wealth, but her body remembered only cold rain and fists. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, restless. What's happening down there? Mabel stared at the window. I don't know. You think he really meant it? About finding them? A car door thudded shut somewhere below. Mabel flinched. Yes. I think he meant every word. Maya exhaled slowly. God, Mabel, you're caught in something we can't afford to be caught in. Mabel didn't answer. Her hands were trembling again. She pressed them together and tried to breathe quietly. Downstairs, heavy footsteps passed along the marble corridor, followed by the distant sound of a door closing. Then silence. At midnight, Mabel couldn't stand the waiting anymore. She slipped out of bed and padded barefoot to the hallway. The mansion's corridors were dimly lit, golden strips of light running along the floorboards. She moved silently, guided by sound, the low murmur of voices coming from Dante's study. The door was slightly open. Through the crack she saw Franco, Dante, and two men she didn't recognize. They were both kneeling on the floor, wrists bound behind their backs with zip ties. Even from that distance she recognized them. Her chest constricted. Rain-streaked jackets, shaved head, cruel eyes. The alley. The laughter. Dante stood over them, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. His calm face looked carved from stone. Mabel's heartbeat roared in her ears. She should have turned back. She didn't. One of the men, the one with the shaved head, was speaking fast, voice shaking. "We didn't know, Mr. Russo. I swear. We were told to rough up someone, send a message. Didn't know she was yours." Dante's tone was almost gentle. "Mine?" The man nodded rapidly. "That's what they said. We didn't mean to." "Stop." Dante's voice cut through the air, quiet but absolute. He crouched down until his eyes were level with the man's. "Tell me. When you saw her uniform, what went through your mind?" The man swallowed hard. "And nothing. Just that she worked here." Dante's head tilted slightly, studying him. "And that gave you permission?" "We were told." Dante interrupted again, softer still. "You were told to touch someone under my roof." He straightened, turned to Franco. "Where's Cost of Rains these days?" "Brooklyn docks, mostly. Expanding his gambling fronts. Then he'll get his message before sunrise." Franco nodded once. The room fell silent again. The two men knelt shivering. Dante didn't raise his voice, didn't move quickly. He simply stood there, composed, terrifying. Mabel backed away before anyone could see her. She reached the top of the stairs and pressed both hands to her mouth to stop the sound that wanted to escape. She didn't want to know what sending a message meant. But she knew. And the worst part, the part that made her knees weak, was that she didn't feel horror. She felt safe. Because those men would never touch her again. By morning, the mansion was quiet again. Sunlight slipped through the blinds. Franco appeared at her door with a neutral expression. "Breakfast is ready in the small dining room. Mr. Russo would like a word." Mabel hesitated. "Is my sister?" "She's in the kitchen." "She's fine." Franco's eyes softened for just a moment. "Eat something before you see him." Mabel's stomach twisted at the thought, but she followed. The smell of coffee filled the air. When she entered the dining room, Dante was already seated at the long table, reading a newspaper folded perfectly in half. He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Sit." Mabel obeyed, unsure if her legs were working out of fear or instinct. He poured coffee into a delicate cup and slid it toward her. "Cream and sugar?" She blinked. "How do you know?" "I know things about the people who work for me." There was no threat in his tone, just a fact. She wrapped her hands around the cup. "You didn't have to." "I did." His eyes didn't leave the newspaper. "You were attacked in my territory. You call it territory like it's a war. It is." He finally looked up. "Only difference is my soldiers wear suits." She looked down at the dark swirl of coffee. "What happened last night?" "They paid for what they did." Her breath caught. "You." "I don't owe you details," he said softly, "only safety." Her voice was barely a whisper. "That doesn't feel like safety." He studied her for a long moment, then folded the newspaper neatly and set it aside. "You're alive because I don't tolerate weakness, Miss Cruz. That includes allowing anyone to harm those under my name." "I'm not under your name." A flicker of amusement crossed his eyes. "You work in my house." "That's close enough." Mabel swallowed. "So that's it. You decide who lives and who dies." He didn't answer. Instead he said, "Franco will drive you and your sister home later. But you'll return here tonight. Until I say otherwise, this house is safer than the city." She opened her mouth to argue, but he stood, ending the conversation. "Eat," he said. "You'll need your strength." Then he left the room, his calm footsteps echoing across the marble like distant thunder. Mabel stared after him, torn between fear and something she didn't have a name for. That night, when she and Maya rode home in silence, the city lights looked sharper, crueler. Maya finally spoke. You saw them, didn't you? Mabel looked out the window. I saw enough. What did he do to them? I don't know. A pause. And I don't think I want to. Maya's voice dropped. Mabel, this isn't protection. It's power. There's a difference. Mabel didn't answer. She couldn't shake Dante's voice from her head, steady, unshakable. You work in my house. That's close enough. The next day began like an echo of the one before, only this time, everyone in the mansion moved differently. The air itself seemed heavier. Security doubled. New men stood at the gates. Even the gardeners whispered. Mabel could feel it in every hallway she cleaned. Something had shifted. When Franco passed her near the staircase, she asked quietly, "What happened?" He shook his head. "Best not to know." "Franco." He sighed. "Two men won't be bothering anyone again. That's all you need to hear." Mabel's stomach clenched. And Costa got the message. She wanted to ask what kind of message required midnight engines and silence by dawn, but the look in Franco's eyes stopped her. Instead, she turned back to polishing the banister, her reflection wavering on the glossy wood. Later that afternoon, Dante called for her. Mabel entered the study hesitantly. He was standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, giving instructions in low Italian. When he finished, he turned toward her. "Sit. I can stand. I didn't ask if you could." She Saturday. For a long moment, neither spoke. He studied her face again, eyes sharp but unreadable. "The swelling's better. Thanks to the makeup," she muttered. "You saw last night's events." It wasn't a question. Her throat tightened. "I didn't mean to. But you did." She stared at her hands. "I couldn't sleep." Dante leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "You're not frightened of me." Her head snapped up. "I didn't say that. You don't have to. Most people can't meet my eyes for more than 5 seconds. She did. Maybe I'm too tired to be scared." Something that almost resembled a smile touched his mouth. "Tired or brave? Hard to tell. Is there a difference? In my world? Not much." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Do you think I was wrong to do what I did?" "I think you did what men like you always do." "And what's that?" "Decide what justice looks like, even if it's painted in blood." He didn't flinch. "You'd rather they walked free?" Her silence was answer enough. Finally she said, "You scare me, Mr. Russo." "Good. I didn't mean that as a compliment." He straightened. It wasn't taken as one. The air between them felt charged, heavy with everything unspoken. Then his voice softened. "You shouldn't be walking home alone anymore. I can take care of myself." He shook his head. "You tried that. Look where it got you. I don't need a babysitter. You need protection. I need freedom." His expression stayed calm, but his tone darkened. "Sometimes those aren't the same thing." She stood, nerves thrumming. "You can't lock me in here. I can keep you alive. I wasn't aware I was yours to keep." His jaw flexed once, barely visible. "You work for me. That means your safety is my responsibility. You'll stay here until I say otherwise. That's final." She wanted to argue, but something in his voice, steel wrapped in quiet, told her it was pointless. He gestured to the side table. "Eat something. Then rest. The doctor will see you tomorrow morning." "I can't afford a doctor. I didn't ask about payment. I don't want charity." He met her gaze, unblinking. "It's not charity. It's accountability." Mabel stared at him, frustrated and confused. "You keep saying I'm part of your responsibility. Why? You barely know me." His answer was immediate. "Because someone tried to use you to test me. And now everyone in this city needs to remember why that was a mistake." He turned away, ending the conversation. But as Mabel left the study, she heard him add quietly, "Besides, Mabel, I notice things. Always have." That night, she stayed again in the guest room. Maya brought her a tray of food, soup, bread, tea, and tried to lighten the mood. "I saw him earlier," Maya said. "He was talking to the security team. He actually smiled at one of the chefs." I think that's a sign of the apocalypse. Mabel half smiled. He smiled at me too. Right before he ordered me to stay here forever. See? Charming. Mabel laughed softly, then winced as the motion pulled at her ribs. Maya's humor faded. You okay? Getting there. You know, he could have just called the cops. Mabel looked down at her hands. Men like Dante Russo don't call the cops. They are the cops, just with better suits. Maya exhaled, shaking her head. I don't know if I should be terrified or impressed. Both, Mabel said quietly. That's what he does to people. When the house finally went quiet, Mabel stood by the window again. The garden below glowed faintly under soft lights, peaceful and perfect, hiding the chaos that had taken place only hours earlier. She touched her ribs gently, thinking of his words, "You work for me. That means your safety is my responsibility." It should have felt like control. It should have felt wrong. But in the quiet of that moment, it sounded almost like protection. And that was the most dangerous feeling of all. The mansion was silent, but sleep refused to come. Mabel lay on her side in the huge guest bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between the soft ticking of the clock. The sheets smelled faintly of cedar and lavender, luxury she couldn't rest in. Every time she closed her eyes, the alley came back, the flash of rain, the men's laughter, the glint of their eyes when they saw the logo on her uniform. She turned over, restless. Beside her bed, the clock read 2:17 a.m. She sat up. The house wasn't truly silent, it breathed in low hums, the faint creak of pipes, the distant murmur of voices somewhere downstairs. Curiosity tugged at her stronger than fear. She slid from the bed, wrapped her thin robe tighter, and stepped into the hallway. The corridor stretched long and gold-lit, paintings staring down like silent witnesses. She moved barefoot, careful not to make a sound. At the far end, a line of light spilled beneath the heavy door of the study. Her heartbeat quickened. She should go back. Whatever happened behind that door wasn't her world. But the whisper of voices drew her closer. Told you to wait until morning, Franco was saying, his voice low but urgent. And then Dante's calm reply, morning would have been too late. Mabel inched closer, her back pressed to the wall beside the door. She could see only a sliver through the narrow crack, enough to make out Dante standing near his desk, his shirt sleeves rolled, his posture easy but dangerous. Two men stood before him, bound and trembling. Her stomach dropped. She recognized them. The same faces from the alley. The smaller one, shaved head, crooked grin, was talking fast, tripping over his words. "We didn't mean to touch your girl, boss. We got orders. I swear, we didn't even know she was." Dante interrupted quietly, "My girl?" The man froze. That's what they said, sir. She works for you." "We didn't know. Who gave the order?" The man hesitated. His partner, already shaking, spoke first. "Costa. Said to rough someone up from your place. Said it would make you listen." Dante's voice stayed calm. "And you listened?" The taller man swallowed. "We had no choice." "There's always a choice," Dante said. He reached for a glass on his desk, filled it from a decanter, and took a slow sip. The simple motion was more terrifying than shouting could ever be. "You made the wrong one." Franco shifted behind him. "Dante. Leave us," Dante said. Franco hesitated. "You sure?" "Yes." Mabel's heart thudded in her throat. Franco left through a side door, the lock clicking softly behind him. Now only Dante and the two kneeling men remained. "Tell me," Dante said after a long silence. "When you saw her, did she beg?" The smaller man's voice broke. She didn't, sir, please." Dante set the glass down and leaned forward slightly, enough that the light caught his face. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Say her name before you die." The man stuttered, choking on the word. "Mabel. Cruz." Something inside Mabel snapped. She stepped back from the door, her breath coming fast. Her hand flew to her mouth to keep from gasping aloud. A dull sound followed, something final, heavy, muffled. She didn't stay long enough to see more. She turned and fled up the stairs, barefoot and trembling, every nerve on fire. Back in her room, she closed the door softly and leaned against it, sliding to the floor. Her whole body shook. She didn't know whether to cry or scream. The sound of her name still echoed in her ears. She buried her face in her knees. It wasn't horror that flooded her chest, it was something worse. Relief. For the first time since the attack, she wasn't afraid those men would find her again. And that terrified her most of all. The next morning came with grey light through the curtains. Mabel sat on the edge of the bed, exhausted but composed. When Maya knocked and peeked in, she forced a faint smile. "You okay?" Maya asked. "Yeah," Mabel lied. "Didn't sleep much." "Neither did I. The guards were all over the garden last night." "What happened?" Mabel hesitated. "Nothing. Just business." Maya frowned. "Business that involves gunshots?" "Don't ask," Mabel said quietly. "Please." Her sister sighed and left it at that. When Mabel looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back, pale skin, tired eyes, a strange calmness that didn't belong to the girl who'd once been invisible. Somewhere downstairs, Dante Russo was probably having breakfast like nothing had happened. She didn't know if she hated him or owed him. Maybe both. That evening, when she went down to the kitchen for tea, she saw him through the glass doors leading to the courtyard alone, standing under the veranda, phone pressed to his ear. Even from here, she could tell by his stillness that he was angry. Not loud, not violent, just controlled fury radiating through every motion. She turned to leave, but his voice carried across the marble floor. "Mabel," he said. She froze. He didn't look at her right away. "How's the pain?" She swallowed. "Better." He nodded once. "Good." She should have walked away. Instead, she found herself saying softly, "I heard things last night." He didn't turn, but his shoulders tensed. "What things?" "Voices. Names." Silence stretched. Then he said, "You shouldn't have been near that room." "I couldn't sleep." "You should learn to." Her hands curled into fists. "You can't expect me to pretend I don't know what you did." Finally, he turned to face her. His expression was calm, unreadable. "And what do you think I did?" "You killed them." He studied her face. "Would that upset you?" She didn't answer. "Look at me, Mabel." She did. "Would it upset you," he repeated, "if I said yes?" Her throat felt tight. "I don't know what it would make me feel." He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "It should make you feel safe." "I'm not sure I should." He gave a faint, humorless smile. "Then that's your conscience, not mine." He walked past her into the house, leaving her standing there with the rain beginning to fall again outside. She didn't see him glance back once through the reflection of the glass door, watching her silhouette long after she was gone. For the next few days, the mansion became both her refuge and her prison. Dante's order was absolute. Mabel and Maya were to stay on the property. Guards came and went, discreet but constant. The staff treated her differently now, respectful, cautious, eyes full of curiosity. Everyone seemed to know she had the boss's attention. Mabel hated it. Everywhere she went, whispers followed. "That's her. The girl from the alley. The one he protected." Even Maya noticed. "You realize you're famous now, right?" Mabel groaned. "Wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted, to be famous for almost dying." But deep down, she knew that wasn't why they whispered. They whispered because Dante Russo had drawn a line around her life and dared the city to cross it. And no one would. One afternoon, she was organizing the linen closet when Dante appeared in the doorway. "Mabel." She nearly dropped a stack of towels. "Mr. Russo. I didn't hear you." "That's the point," he said lightly. "Come with me." "Where?" "To see the doctor." "I told you, I'm fine." "You're not." His tone softened slightly. "Humor me." She followed him down the hall to a private office on the first floor. A middle-aged man with kind eyes waited there with a medical bag. The doctor smiled warmly. "Miss Cruz, Mr. Russo insisted we check your injuries." "Just routine." Mabel hesitated, glancing at Dante. He nodded once, silent assurance. The examination was quick but thorough. Bruised ribs, a healing cut along her cheekbone, some bruising on her wrists. The doctor prescribed rest, mild medication, and ice. When he left, Dante lingered by the desk, watching her pull down her sleeve again. "Does it hurt?" he asked. "Only when I breathe." He smiled faintly. "Try not to, then." She rolled her eyes before she could stop herself. "I'll keep that in mind." His smile widened just enough to change his face, softer, almost human. "There she is." "Who?" "The woman who doesn't flinch." "I flinch plenty." "Not at me." She looked away quickly. "Maybe I should." His voice lowered. "Maybe you should." Silence fell between them. The tension in the air shifted, something unspoken but undeniable. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell the faint spice of his cologne. "You should rest, Mabel. I need you strong." "For what?" He studied her a long time before saying, "For surviving." That night, she couldn't sleep again. The memory of his closeness replayed like a heartbeat. The way his voice had softened, the way his eyes had watched her not like a servant, but something else. She sat by the window, the moonlight painting silver across the floor. Down below, the courtyard glowed softly, empty except for Dante standing by the fountain, cigarette between his fingers. He wasn't supposed to smoke, she'd heard Franco complain about it. But here he was, head tilted to the sky, a man carved from control and loneliness. Before she could talk herself out of it, she slipped on her robe and padded quietly downstairs. The glass doors opened with a soft click. Cool night air brushed against her skin. He turned slightly, noticing her. "You should be sleeping." "So should you." He exhaled smoke, watching it fade into the night. "I sleep when I deserve it." She walked closer, barefoot on the cold marble. "And when will that be?" He looked at her, eyes shadowed. "When I've made this city quiet again." "That's not peace," she said softly. "That's fear. Sometimes they're the same thing." She stepped beside him, staring at the fountain. "Why me, Dante? You have hundreds of people working for you. Why protect me like this?" He took another slow drag, then crushed the cigarette out. "Because you were hurt for being mine. I'm not yours." He turned to face her fully. "No." His nearness made her pulse skip. "Everything in this house belongs under my protection," he said. "Even you." She looked up at him, voice barely a whisper. "That sounds like possession, not care." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Sometimes they overlap." The honesty in his voice unnerved her. "Is that what this is?" she asked. "Possession?" He took a step closer, his eyes catching the light. "I don't know yet." Her breath caught. "You should figure it out before someone gets hurt." His voice dropped, almost tender. "Too late for that." For a moment, neither moved. The world outside the mansion was chaos, but here, under the moonlight, time slowed. Then she turned away. "Good night, Mr. Russo." He said nothing as she walked back inside. But when she was gone, he looked at the space she'd left and whispered into the quiet. "It's Dante." Mabel didn't hear him. But that night, when she finally fell asleep, she dreamed of a man standing in rain, his voice calm and dangerous, whispering her name as if it meant something sacred. And when morning came, she couldn't tell if it had been a dream at all. The city never stopped moving, even when it should have. Sirens wailed in the distance, car horns echoed through the grey morning air, and somewhere below Dante Russo's mansion, the rest of the world kept spinning. Inside, time slowed. Mabel worked quietly in the east wing, folding towels, changing linens, pretending she didn't notice the way everyone looked at her now. The whispers followed her like shadows. "That's her. The one he's protecting. She must have done something to get his attention. No one gets that close to the boss unless they matter." Mabel ignored them, or tried to. The bruises on her ribs had faded, but the invisible mark Dante had left on her life was far from gone. When she carried fresh sheets past the kitchen, she overheard Maya whispering to another staff member. "He's different around her. I've worked here almost a year and I've never seen him talk this much." Mabel stopped in the hallway, her heart beating a little faster. Different around her. She didn't know what that meant, but it scared her all the same. By noon, the mansion was buzzing with tension. Dante was expecting a visit from Detective Grant Voss, the NYPD's relentless hunter of ghosts, and the only cop brave or foolish enough to poke at the Russo empire. Mabel first saw the detective when Franco escorted him through the main hall. Voss was tall, graying at the temples, sharp-eyed. His gaze moved like a searchlight, assessing everything. When his eyes landed on Mabel, he paused. "You work here?" Mabel straightened. "Yes." "Name?" "Mabel Cruz." He nodded slowly, recognition flickering. "You were attacked last week, weren't you?" Her pulse jumped. I don't want to talk about that." "You should. Attacks like that don't happen by accident. Especially not in this neighborhood." Before she could answer, Dante's voice cut in from behind her. "Detective." The way he said it, calm, quiet, and lethal, made the air itself go still. "Mr. Russo," Voss said smoothly. "Just following up on some concerns. A worker of yours was assaulted nearby. Odd coincidence, don't you think?" Dante's expression didn't change. "Coincidences happen every day in this city." Voss smiled faintly. "Not to men like you." Mabel looked between them, feeling the temperature in the room drop. Dante's eyes flicked toward her. "Mabel, you have work to do. Go." She hesitated. "Yes, sir." As she walked away, she caught Voss's voice low and amused. "You don't let your employees talk for themselves." Dante replied softly, "I don't let wolves talk to my sheep." Her steps faltered. She didn't know whether to feel insulted or protected. That night, Mabel couldn't stop thinking about the detective's sharp eyes. He had looked at her like she was a key to a locked door, something fragile that could open everything. But Dante's words echoed louder. "I don't let wolves talk to my sheep." Was that what she was to him? A fragile thing to be guarded, caged behind his empire's walls? She was cleaning the grand staircase when Dante appeared at the top, his dark suit catching the glow from the chandelier. "You've been quiet today," he said. "I'm working," she replied without looking up. "Are you angry with me?" Her grip tightened on the railing. "Should I be?" He came down a few steps, slow and deliberate. "The detective made you uncomfortable. You didn't let me answer him. I didn't like the way he was looking at you. That's not your decision." He stopped a few steps above her, the light framing him like a shadow made human. "Everything that touches you becomes my decision now." She turned to face him, heart pounding. "Why?" "Because I happened to work for you. Because you decided to play hero one night." His eyes darkened. "Because someone hurt what's mine. You keep saying that like it's supposed to make me feel safe. It doesn't, it just makes me feel owned." He took another step closer. "If being owned means no one can ever lay a hand on you again, maybe that's not the curse you think it is." The words hung between them, heavy and dangerous. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The air smelled faintly of polish and rain from the open balcony doors. Then Dante said quietly, "Go to bed, Mabel. We'll talk tomorrow. I don't think I'll ever be able to talk to you normally again." "Good," he said, turning away. "Normal is overrated." Later that night, Mabel stood by her window, watching the city lights pulse far below. She thought about freedom, the kind she'd wanted all her life. Freedom from debt, from fear, from being invisible. And now she was visible. Terrifyingly so. But visibility under Dante Russo's gaze wasn't freedom. It was a kind of captivity that looked like safety. She didn't know whether she should thank him or run from him. And she couldn't tell which one scared her more. Morning sunlight spilled across the mansion's courtyard, bouncing off the polished glass windows. Mabel was helping arrange the breakfast table when Franco entered. "Mr. Russo wants to see you," he said simply. Her stomach knotted. "Now?" "Yes." "His office." She wiped her hands on her apron and followed. The hallway felt longer than usual, the air thicker. When she reached the study, Dante was standing by the window again, looking out over the city. He didn't turn as she entered. "You didn't sleep. You're watching me now?" He turned, expression unreadable. "No. But you look like someone who's been arguing with ghosts." "I don't have ghosts." "Then you're lucky." He gestured toward the sofa. "Sit." She sat, her posture stiff. The doctor said you haven't been taking the pain medication, he said. I don't need it. You can't heal if you pretend you're fine. I've been pretending my whole life, she said quietly. It's the only thing I'm good at. He studied her for a long time. What did you do before you worked here? She blinked. Why do you care? Because you're the only person in this house who still looks me in the eye. I was a cleaner. I took whatever job paid. Hotels, restaurants, offices. My mother was sick, and someone had to pay for her hospital bills. And your father? She hesitated. Gone. He nodded slowly. So you learned early what it means to survive. Didn't everyone? Not everyone, he said softly. She shifted, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. If that's all. It's not. He stepped closer, his gaze steady. You're going to the clinic today. My doctor will check your ribs again. I told you, I don't need. Mabel. The way he said her name stopped her cold. Calm, commanding, no room for defiance. You'll go. She exhaled sharply. And if I say no? He smiled faintly. You won't. The clinic was hidden behind an unmarked door downtown, private, expensive, too quiet. A woman in a white coat greeted them and led Mabel to an exam room while Dante waited outside. The examination confirmed what she already knew. Her ribs were still tender but healing. When it was done, the doctor handed her a small envelope. Pain management prescription. Mr. Russo has already handled the payment. Mabel frowned. I can pay for myself. The doctor smiled gently. He insisted. He usually does. When Mabel stepped back into the waiting area, Dante was leaning against the wall, scrolling through his phone. All done? He asked. Yes. You didn't need to come. Maybe not. But I wanted to make sure you didn't bolt. Do you really think I'd run? He slipped the phone into his pocket. I think you'd try. They walked out together. His driver opened the car door, but instead of sitting across from him, Mabel slid into the seat beside the window, staring out. After a long silence, Dante spoke. You think I'm controlling you? She turned to him. Aren't you? He didn't deny it. Control is how I keep people alive. That's not living. It's surviving. There's a difference. You sound like you've convinced yourself that fear is love. He glanced at her, something sharp in his eyes. And you sound like you don't know which one you want. The words cut too close. She turned away. They didn't speak again until the car stopped in front of the mansion. As she got out, he said quietly, You don't have to be afraid of me, Mabel. She paused, looking back at him. That's the problem. I'm not. That evening, she helped Maya in the kitchen, trying to lose herself in simple motions, cutting vegetables, stirring soup, anything that didn't require thinking. But Dante's words clung to her like smoke. You don't have to be afraid of me. Fear wasn't what she felt. It was something else entirely, something far more dangerous. When the kitchen emptied and the house quieted again, she found herself walking toward the study. She didn't even know why. Maybe she wanted to thank him. Maybe she wanted to tell him to stop. The door was open. He was there, of course, sitting behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, the faint glow of the desk lamp haloing his face. He looked up when she entered. Can't sleep again? I wasn't planning to stay long. Then say what you came to say. She hesitated. I wanted to thank you. For helping. The doctor, the guards, everything. You don't owe me thanks. I think I do. He leaned back slightly. You think gratitude will balance the scale between us? I just don't like debts. Then consider it repaid, he said. You're safe. That's enough. But it wasn't enough, and they both knew it. Mabel's voice softened. Why do you keep looking at me like that? Like what? Like you're trying to solve a puzzle. He smiled faintly. Maybe I am. And what if the pieces don't fit? He stood, walked around the desk, and stopped in front of her. Then I make them fit. She held her breath. His nearness, his scent, power and danger wrapped in calm. He reached out, brushed his thumb lightly against her wrist. You should rest. Are you ordering me? No, his voice dropped to a murmur. That was a request. She pulled back slowly, her heart pounding. "Good night, Dante." Her use of his first name made him pause, eyes flickering with something unreadable. When she left, he stayed where he was, staring at the door she'd closed behind her. And for the first time in years, Dante Russo realized he wasn't entirely in control. Morning sunlight spilled across the marble floors like liquid gold. The mansion was awake, but the quiet that followed breakfast felt heavy, charged. Mabel moved through it carefully, her thoughts a storm she couldn't calm. Everywhere she went, she could feel Dante's presence, not because he was near, but because she was constantly aware of where he might be. It was ridiculous, she told herself. He was her boss. A man made of rules, discipline, danger. And yet, the memory of his voice, that low, steady tone that could turn from command to confession in a single breath, lingered inside her like an echo she couldn't silence. Maya noticed it too. "You've been weird lately," her sister said that afternoon as they folded laundry in the service room. "I'm fine." "No, you're distracted. You flinch every time someone says his name." Mabel kept her eyes down. "You're imagining things." Maya dropped a towel on the pile. "Please. I'm not blind, Mabel. The man walks into a room and your heartbeat could power the city grid." Mabel tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "You're being dramatic." "Am I? Because I'm the one watching you fall for the one man who could destroy you without blinking." "I'm not falling for anyone," Mabel said sharply. "He's just." "Just what?" Mabel's voice dropped. "Just impossible to ignore." Maya sighed, looking at her sister with a mix of worry and affection. "Just remember, the devil doesn't always come with horns. Sometimes he wears a suit and says your name like a promise." That night, the storm rolled in again, hard, fast, and loud. Rain lashed against the tall windows, thunder cracking over the city skyline. Mabel lay in bed, unable to sleep. The thunder reminded her of footsteps, of voices, of that night she'd almost died. The air in her room felt too tight. She sat up, breathing fast, one hand pressed against her ribs where pain had long since faded but memory had not. "You're safe," she told herself. "You're fine." But the walls felt like they were closing in. She couldn't breathe. Her feet moved before her thoughts caught up. She opened her door, walked down the dim hallway, and found herself outside his study. The door was slightly ajar, a faint light spilling through. She hesitated. Then, quietly, she knocked. "Come in," came Dante's voice. She pushed the door open. He was standing by the fireplace, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, a glass of whiskey in one hand. "Mabel," he said softly. "You should be asleep." "I couldn't." He set the glass down and turned toward her. "Nightmares?" "Something like that." He studied her face for a moment, then gestured toward the sofa. "Sit." She did, her hands twisting together. "It's stupid, I know. I just couldn't breathe." He didn't laugh or dismiss her. He sat down beside her, keeping a respectful distance but close enough that the air between them changed. "Tell me what you see when you close your eyes," he said. "The alley," she whispered. "The rain. Their faces. I can't stop hearing them say your name." Dante leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "That's over." "It doesn't feel over." He looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "What do you want me to do?" "I don't know." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand brushed her cheek, thumb tracing the faint scar near her jaw. "You're safe now," he said, his voice low. Her breath caught. "Why do you keep saying that?" "Because I need you to believe it." "I don't think you believe it either." Their eyes locked, silence, rain, thunder. Then, before she could think, before either of them could stop it, his lips brushed hers. It wasn't rushed or violent, just a slow, searching kiss that felt like the world holding its breath. When he pulled back, his voice was rougher. "That shouldn't have happened." "I know." He stood, pacing once toward the window. "You work for me. I know that too." And yet, he turned, eyes dark. "You didn't stop me. I didn't want to." That broke whatever restraint he had left. He moved toward her again, stopping close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "Tell me to stop." She didn't. Instead, she whispered, You won't. He bent down, his lips finding hers again, deeper this time, still careful, but laced with something dangerous, something neither of them could name. When he finally stepped back, his breathing was uneven. You should go. Mabel nodded, though her legs barely obeyed her. Good night, Dante. He said nothing as she left the room. Only when the door closed did he whisper, Good night, Mabel. And he stayed awake long after, staring at the rain, wondering when exactly she'd become the only thing capable of undoing him. The next day passed in a blur of silence and stolen glances. Mabel tried to pretend nothing had happened, but every time she crossed paths with Dante in the hallway, by the staircase, in the kitchen doorway, her chest tightened. He was the same, calm, composed, unreadable. But his eyes lingered a little too long. By evening, she thought maybe he'd decided to forget. Maybe it had meant nothing. Maybe it was just a moment born out of fear and sleeplessness. Then Franco appeared at the laundry room door. Mr. Russo wants you dressed and ready by 7. Mabel frowned. Ready for what? He didn't say. But he sent a dress. A dress? Franco smiled faintly. Don't argue. It's a nice one. The dress was black silk, simple but elegant. When she put it on, it clung gently to her shape, the neckline modest, the hem brushing her knees. Maya's jaw dropped when she saw her. You look like someone about to ruin a man's entire life. Don't start, Mabel said, adjusting the sleeves. Do you even know where he's taking you? No. Maya grinned. If he proposes world domination, at least get a good meal out of it. Mabel rolled her eyes, but her heart wouldn't stop racing. At exactly 7, Franco arrived to escort her. The car waiting outside was sleek and black, its interior smelling of leather and faint cologne. Dante was already inside, wearing his usual suit, dark, perfect, lethal. He looked at her for a long second before saying, You clean up well. She looked out the window. That's one way to say good evening. He smirked slightly. Good evening, Mabel. She folded her hands in her lap. Where are we going? To dinner. With you. Unless you'd prefer Franco. I'd prefer to know why. He didn't answer. The car wove through the city until it stopped at a high-end restaurant overlooking the river, the kind of place that didn't take reservations, only names. Dante Russo didn't need either. When they walked in, heads turned. Conversations quieted. The maître d' greeted him like royalty. Mabel tried to shrink behind him, but Dante's hand pressed gently to her lower back. With me, he murmured. They were seated in a private room near the back, candles flickering between them. Mabel looked around nervously. Why bring me here? Because I want you to see something. What? He nodded toward the entrance. Our guest. Moments later, 2 men entered, Franco, and behind him, Costa Vrains. Mabel froze. The man's slicked back hair, dark suit, easy smirk, everything about him radiated confidence and threat. He glanced at her and smiled. So this is the girl. The reason your men are bleeding in the streets, Russo. Dante's expression didn't change. Careful, Costa. I'm only admiring your taste. Costa's smile widened, cruel. She's prettier than I expected. Mabel's blood ran cold. Dante reached for his wine glass with measured calm. Say another word to her, and you'll leave here without a tongue. Costa laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Always so dramatic. I came to talk peace. You don't know what that word means, Dante said. Costa leaned back, unbothered. You've made your point. 2 of mine disappeared. Fine. But the city's big enough for both of us. Only if you remember whose streets you're walking. The tension was suffocating. Mabel sat perfectly still, every nerve alert. Costa's gaze slid to her again. Tell me, sweetheart, do you know how many wars start because a man gets protective? Mabel opened her mouth, but Dante's hand came to rest lightly on hers under the table. Don't answer him, he said quietly. She didn't. Costa chuckled. You're training her already. Impressive. Dante's voice stayed calm, but his eyes were pure ice. You've got 5 minutes to leave this restaurant alive. Spend them wisely. Costa stood, brushing imaginary dust from his jacket. Always a pleasure, Russo. Enjoy your dinner. When he was gone, Mabel let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That was peace, she asked softly. Dante set down his glass. That was a warning. For him or for me? His eyes found hers. For anyone who thinks you're unprotected. She stared at him, voice trembling slightly. You used me. I was a message. I kept you safe, he said. You could have left me out of it. He leaned forward, his tone low and certain. You were never out of it, Mabel. Not anymore. The room felt too small, too hot. You don't get to decide that. Someone has to. You think control is love? He smiled faintly. No. I think love looks a lot like control when you're trying not to lose what matters. She stared at him, heart hammering. And what exactly am I to you, Dante? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he said softly, the only thing I didn't plan for. They left the restaurant in silence. When the car pulled up to the mansion, she turned to him before opening the door. Whatever this is between us, you can't protect me from it. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Maybe not. But I can protect you from everything else. She stepped out of the car, the night air cool against her flushed skin. And for the first time, she didn't know whether the cage she was in was built to keep her safe or to keep her his. The next morning, Mabel woke to the sound of her phone buzzing non-stop. Dozens of notifications, messages from unknown numbers, and a few from friends she hadn't spoken to in months. She blinked, confused, until one headline caught her eye. Mystery woman seen with Dante Russo at La Grande River. Her breath caught. Beneath the bold letters was a blurry photo, her, in the black silk dress, walking beside Dante into the restaurant. His hand resting on her back. Her face, tilted toward him, the flash of the camera catching the smallest smile she hadn't even known she'd made. The article beneath it was short but sharp. Is the city's most feared man finally tamed? Sources say the young woman works for Russo personally. Her stomach twisted. Maya knocked once before pushing open the bedroom door. You saw it? Yes, Mabel said softly. Maya crossed her arms. Half of New York has seen it. You're trending, Mabel. Your name, your face, your job, everything. How did they even? Maya cut her off. They always know. And now every cop, reporter, and rival he's got will know who you are. Mabel sat on the bed, phone still buzzing in her hand. I didn't ask for this. I know, Maya said gently, but you stepped into his world. It doesn't let you go quietly. Mabel buried her face in her hands. I can't do this. I didn't sign up to be, whatever this is. You need to talk to him, Maya said. Before this gets worse. When Mabel entered the study that morning, Dante was already standing by the window, phone in hand, his jaw tight. Franco stood near the desk, speaking quietly. They're digging, Franco said. Your name's in 3 papers already. The detective's been sniffing around again too. Voss? Dante asked, voice low. Yes. He called her apartment this morning. Mabel froze. Dante's eyes flicked toward her immediately. Leave us, he told Franco. When they were alone, Mabel crossed her arms. The world knows my name, thanks to you. His voice stayed calm. I told the press nothing. You didn't have to. You paraded me into that restaurant like some kind of prize. I took you to dinner. Don't play dumb. You wanted them to see. You wanted Costa to see. He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. You're angry. I'm terrified, she said. And you're acting like that's the same thing. His eyes softened for the first time. I never wanted this to touch you. Then why does everything you do find its way back to me? He stepped closer. Because you're the only thing in my life that isn't business. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. She shook her head, frustration and fear colliding inside her. People are going to start asking questions, Dante. Real ones. The police, the tabloids, they'll follow me, my sister. They won't touch you, he said quietly. Not while I'm breathing. Don't you understand? That's not safety. That's just a slower kind of danger. His jaw tightened. Then what do you want from me, Mabel? To let them tear you apart in headlines while I sit quietly and watch. I want my life back, she said. The one where no one cared who I was. That life doesn't exist anymore. Her throat tightened. Because of you. Yes, he said simply. Because of me. The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. She wanted to hate him. But she couldn't. Not when he looked at her like that, like she was both his punishment and his salvation. I don't know how to live like this, she whispered. He reached for her, fingers brushing her wrist. Then I'll teach you. She pulled back. You can't teach someone how to survive you. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. By evening, the city outside was boiling with rumor. 2 reporters were already camped at the end of the street. Mabel watched them from the balcony, her reflection ghosting in the glass. Her phone rang again. It was an unknown number. She answered out of instinct. Mabel Cruz. The voice was smooth, too calm. This is Detective Grant Voss. We need to talk. She hesitated. About what? About Mr. Russo. And about what you might have seen. I haven't seen anything. I think you have. She turned toward the window, her voice dropping. You shouldn't call me again. Mabel, Voss said quietly, people around Dante don't stay untouched for long. I'm the only one trying to keep you alive. She ended the call without replying. When she looked back at the courtyard, Dante was there, watching her from below. She didn't know how long he'd been standing there, but his expression said everything he knew. He didn't have to ask who had called. And she didn't have to tell him she'd already chosen which side she was on. It started with the sound of a car engine. A growl in the distance, low but wrong. Then the explosion. The blast shattered the stillness of the night. Windows shook. Alarms screamed. Mabel shot upright in bed, the floor vibrating beneath her. Maya, she shouted, running toward the hallway. Smoke filled the air, choking and acrid. One of the cars outside was burning, flames licking the night sky. Guards shouted orders. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Franco appeared through the haze, coughing. She's fine, he yelled. Your sister's fine. Stay here. Mabel's heart hammered. What happened? Car bomb. Targeted. Targeted? Dante's car, Franco said grimly. Her blood went cold. Where is he? On his way back from the docks. We're getting him inside now. Before she could respond, another door slammed open. Dante entered, flanked by 2 men, smoke clinging to his suit. His expression was carved from fury. He spotted her immediately. Are you hurt? She shook her head. No. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. She didn't even have time to protest. His hold was rough, desperate. You were supposed to be safe, he said against her hair. I am, she managed. Not anymore. He pulled back, eyes blazing. They went after what's mine. That's the last mistake they'll ever make. Dante. He turned to Franco. Lock down the house. No one in or out. Already done. Call Rocco. I want every name Costa's ever used. Mabel grabbed his arm. Stop. You can't. He looked at her, and for a moment she saw not the man, but the monster the city whispered about. I can, he said. And I will. She shook her head, tears burning behind her eyes. More killing won't fix this. It will stop it. No, it'll just make it worse. He didn't answer. He was already walking toward the door. Dante, please. He stopped, his voice barely audible. You think I can watch them try to kill you and do nothing? I think if you keep fighting fire with fire, we'll all burn. He turned, his eyes softening for just a second. Then I'll burn first. And then he was gone. Hours later, the mansion was silent again. Smoke still clung faintly to the night air. Mabel sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the faint soot on her hands. She didn't realize Dante had returned until she heard the door open behind her. He looked exhausted, tie gone, shirt stained with blood that wasn't his. You're hurt, she said immediately. Not mine. Her stomach twisted. Dante, what did you do? He walked past her, poured a drink from the decanter on the table, and downed it in one motion. What I had to. She stood. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. Her voice trembled. I don't want to know. Yes, you do, he said quietly. Because if you didn't, you'd have left already. He was right. She hated that he was right. Why does it always have to be blood? She asked softly. Because men like me don't get peace, Mabel. We trade one war for another. And me, she whispered. He set the glass down, the sound sharp in the silence. You're the reason I still want peace at all. Her breath caught. He moved closer, every step deliberate. You make me remember what quiet feels like. Then why does being near you sound like thunder? His hand brushed her cheek, tracing the line of soot there. Because thunder means you're still alive. She didn't stop him when he leaned in. This kiss was different, raw, desperate, the kind of kiss that belonged to people who just survived something they shouldn't have. When they finally broke apart, her voice was unsteady. What happens now? He looked at her, eyes dark and certain. Now, we make them afraid again. She shook her head, tears slipping free. You already have the whole city afraid. Not afraid enough, he said. Not until they understand what happens when they touch what's mine. She stared at him, the man she should have run from, the man she couldn't. And for the first time, she realized that love and fear could live in the same heartbeat. The rain came down hard again the next night, drumming against the mansion's tall windows. The storm felt endless, echoing the tension that had taken hold inside the walls. Everyone in Dante Russo's house was quiet, guards patrolling the perimeter, staff walking softly, doors shutting gently. The air carried the smell of gunpowder and fear. Mabel hadn't seen him all day. After the explosion, Dante had vanished into the city. Franco said only 2 words, his working. When he finally returned, it was past midnight. The door opened softly, but the quiet that entered with him was heavier than any noise could be. His black suit jacket was gone, his shirt half-buttoned, sleeves rolled to his elbows. There were faint stains on his hands, darker than rainwater. Mabel stepped out from the shadows of the corridor. Where were you? Dante looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Handling it. She folded her arms tightly. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Whose blood is that? He glanced down at his hands. Not mine. Her stomach tightened. Then whose? He didn't answer. He walked past her, poured whiskey into a glass, and took a long drink. His movements were calm, too calm. She followed him into the study. You said you wanted peace. But you don't mean it, do you? You mean revenge. Dante's back stiffened, but he didn't turn around. Peace is earned through fear in my world. Fear isn't peace, it's just silence. He turned then, his eyes sharp. You think I like this? You think I wake up wanting to be this man? Don't you? She whispered. Because every time someone hurts you, you hurt them back worse. Every time someone crosses you, you destroy them. And you call it justice. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just in front of her. You think I enjoy it? You think I wanted to grow up learning to fight before I could read? You think I wanted to inherit a kingdom built on corpses? I don't want this life, Mabel. But it's mine. And I know how to survive in it. She swallowed hard, searching his face. Then why do you drag me into it? Because, he said quietly, you make me forget I'm part of it. Her voice shook. That's not an excuse. It's not meant to be. He sat on the edge of his desk, the exhaustion behind his eyes raw, unguarded. I told myself I could protect you and keep you separate from this world. But that was a lie. You were never separate. The second they touched you, you became part of my story. Mabel shook her head. I never asked to be. I know. He looked down at his hands again. And I'm sorry. It was the first time she'd ever heard Dante Russo say those words. She stood still, watching him, unsure what to do with them. What did you do tonight? He looked up, his voice quiet but clear. Costa is gone. Her heart stopped. Gone. He met her eyes. You don't need details. Tears stung her eyes. You killed him. I ended the war. You mean you ended a man? He didn't deny it. Mabel took a step back, her throat tight. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep making choices that turn you into everything you say you hate. I told you, I don't get to be the good man. You could try. He gave a small, broken laugh. And what would you have me do, Mabel? Walk away from the only world that listens to my name? Turn my back and pretend I don't know how to stop monsters like him? You are one of them. The words burst out before she could stop them. Dante froze. The silence that followed was so thick it hurt. I didn't mean, she started, but he cut her off quietly. Yes, you did. And you're right. He looked at her with something that almost resembled grief. The difference is, I'm your monster. Her voice trembled. That's not better. He moved closer, lowering his voice. Then tell me to stop. Tell me to walk away. She wanted to. God, she wanted to. But when she looked into his eyes, she couldn't. Instead, she whispered, I can't. He brushed his hand gently along her cheek. Then you understand me better than anyone else ever has. Her chest tightened. You're going to get yourself killed. He smiled faintly. Then I'll die knowing I finally met someone who saw me. And when she leaned into him, when his arms closed around her, it didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like surrender. They stood there for a long moment, the storm outside roaring as if it wanted to drown out the quiet breaking between them. When she finally pulled away, she said softly, You can't save me and destroy yourself at the same time. I already have, he murmured. The city didn't rest after Costa's disappearance. It buzzed with rumors instead, whispers of retribution, of bodies found at the docks, of power shifting like a tide no one could stop. Inside the mansion, the air felt brittle. The staff moved carefully, sensing a storm of a different kind coming. Mabel felt it too. Dante was quieter now, more distant. He worked late, made calls at odd hours, and sometimes didn't return until dawn. Every time he walked through the door, she could smell danger clinging to his suit. One morning, as she brought coffee into the study, she overheard raised voices. Franco's, low but urgent, and Dante's, sharp with warning. You're losing control, Franco said. You can't see what's happening because of her. Watch your words, Dante said coldly. I've watched for years, Franco shot back. I've seen what happens when men like you get distracted. She's not one of us. And she's making you soft. She's making me human, Dante said. She's making you vulnerable. There was a long pause, then the quiet scrape of a chair. Franco, Dante said, his tone soft but final. You're my oldest friend. Don't mistake my patience for permission. Someone has to tell you the truth, Franco replied. You're going to get her killed. Mabel froze outside the door. She couldn't breathe. Franco's voice dropped, low and pained. If it comes down to her or the family, you'll have to choose. And I already know which one you'll pick. Leave, Dante said. Franco did. The door opened suddenly, catching Mabel mid-step. Mabel. His tone was flat. She swallowed. I was just bringing coffee. Dante's eyes softened a fraction. Set it down. She did, hands shaking. Is it true? He frowned. What did you hear? That I'm making you weak. He exhaled slowly. You make me different. That scares people. It scares me too, she whispered. He stepped closer. Don't listen to Franco. He doesn't understand. He understands enough to be worried. Dante looked away, jaw tight. He's loyal. But sometimes loyalty blinds you. Mabel hesitated, wanting to believe him but feeling the first thread of doubt pull tight inside her. That evening, Maya burst into Mabel's room, pale and shaking. You need to see this. She handed Mabel her phone. On the screen was a message from an unknown number, a photo of Maya walking home the day before, followed by one sentence. Tell your sister to keep her distance, or she'll be next. Mabel's hands went cold. Who sent this? I don't know, Maya said. It came 5 minutes ago. Mabel ran straight to Dante's office, phone clutched in her hand. Someone's watching us. He took one look at the photo, his expression darkening. Franco. Within seconds, Franco appeared at the door. Dante handed him the phone. Trace it. Franco nodded and left without a word. Mabel's voice shook. They're threatening Maya now. They won't touch her, Dante said, pacing. They wouldn't dare. They already did. He stopped, turning to her. You're both staying in the safe room tonight. No arguments. Mabel nodded numbly. But as Dante turned away, she caught something flicker across his face, something that looked like guilt. 2 hours later, the house went dark. At first she thought it was a power cut. Then came the shouts, the sound of boots against marble, gunfire echoing from downstairs. Mabel. Maya screamed from the next room. Stay down. Mabel yelled, running toward her sister. The door burst open before she reached it. A man stepped through, gun raised, then dropped instantly as Dante's bullet hit him square in the chest. Go. Dante shouted, grabbing Mabel's arm. Now. They ran down the hall as the guards exchanged fire with intruders. Who are they? Mabel gasped. Traitors, Dante said grimly. Inside men. They knew the layout too well. They reached the safe room, a reinforced chamber behind a false wall in the library. Dante shoved both sisters inside. Stay here, he ordered. No. Mabel cried. You're not going out there alone. I have to. Dante. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. If I don't come back, you keep going. Don't look for me. She shook her head violently. Don't say that. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're stronger than you think, Mabel. Then he was gone, the steel door sliding shut behind him. Maya clung to her sister, trembling. He'll be fine, right? Mabel didn't answer. She couldn't. Minutes felt like hours. The gunfire faded. Then silence. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Dante who stood there. It was Franco. His face was pale, his hands shaking. Where's Dante? Mabel demanded. Franco didn't meet her eyes. Gone after them. Gone after who? Costa's men weren't the only problem. Someone inside sold your location. Her heart stopped. Who? Franco's silence was the only answer she needed. It was you, she whispered. He looked at her, guilt written across his face. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought it would scare him back to focus. I didn't know they'd come for you. Mabel's voice broke. You betrayed him. I was trying to save him. From behind him, a voice said quietly, you failed. Dante stood in the doorway, gun in hand, face unreadable. Franco turned, his mouth opening, but Dante's shot came first. The sound was deafening. Mabel screamed. Dante. He lowered the gun slowly, his expression hollow. He made his choice. You killed him, she said through tears. I killed the man who gave you to the wolves. Mabel pressed a hand to her mouth, shaking. You're losing yourself. Maybe, he said quietly. But you're still here. She looked at him, eyes full of fear and sorrow. At what cost? He stepped closer, voice almost a whisper. Everything worth keeping costs something. Outside, the rain began again, washing blood into the gutters, the city unaware that its quietest night was also its darkest. And in that silence, Mabel realized the truth she tried so hard to deny. Dante Russo would destroy anyone, anything, even himself, for her. And the worst part was, she wasn't sure she wanted him to stop. The mansion smelled of smoke and gunpowder. Every wall seemed to hold the echo of that single gunshot, the one that ended Franco's life and whatever part of Dante Russo's soul was left to save. Mabel hadn't spoken to him since. She couldn't. Every time she tried to look at him, she saw Franco's body falling, saw the calm in Dante's eyes as he pulled the trigger. For the next 2 days, she stayed in her room, leaving only when Maya insisted she eat. The city outside kept moving, oblivious to the violence that had just rewritten its balance of power. Inside the mansion, silence ruled. Maya hovered nearby, afraid to ask too much. You're not sleeping, she said softly one morning, setting down a tray of breakfast Mabel wouldn't touch. I don't want to dream, Mabel said, her voice hollow. You can't stay locked up forever. I can't look at him. Maya hesitated. He did it for you. That doesn't make it right. No, Maya said. But you're alive because of it. Mabel stared out the window. I'm starting to wonder if that's a blessing or a curse. Dante spent those same 2 days behind closed doors. The guards avoided him. No one dared mention Franco's name. The empire still needed running. Meetings, shipments, messages, he handled them all with mechanical precision. But his thoughts never left the image of Mabel's face when she'd screamed his name that night. Not in fear of the men who attacked them. In fear of him. He poured himself another drink, though it barely dulled the sound of her voice echoing in his head. When the knock came at his office door, he didn't look up. What? It's her, a guard said from the hall. She wants to see you. Dante froze. Send her in. Mabel stepped inside. She looked pale but steady, her dark hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. He set the glass down. You shouldn't be here. I had to be. He leaned back slowly. Say what you came to say. She took a breath. You killed your oldest friend in front of me. Yes. And you're not sorry? He looked at her, his face still. I'm sorry it had to happen. But I'm not sorry I protected you. You think those are the same thing? I think the world doesn't give me the luxury of feeling guilty for surviving. She crossed her arms, voice trembling with anger. He wasn't your enemy. He became one when he sold your name to mine. Her voice dropped. And what happens when I make a mistake? When I cross you without meaning to? Do I end up like him too? His silence was answer enough. Her throat tightened. You scare me, Dante. Good, he said quietly. Fear keeps you alive. That's not living, she whispered. That's being trapped. He stood, walking toward her slowly, eyes dark but calm. You think I want you trapped? You could leave right now. You're free. Her heart pounded. If I tried, you'd follow me. He stopped inches from her. Yes. They stared at each other for a long time. The air between them was thick anger, pain, something that still burned despite everything. Finally, she whispered, then you're not protecting me. You're haunting me. He looked down, a bitter smile ghosting across his lips. Maybe that's all I know how to do. She stepped back, tears threatening. I don't know what's worse, loving you or being afraid of you. He flinched, the first crack in his composure. Don't say that. Then give me a reason not to. He reached for her, but she pulled away. I can't fix what I am, he said. But I can make sure no one else hurts you again. You already did, she said softly. She left before he could answer, her footsteps echoing down the hall. For a long time after she was gone, Dante just stood there, staring at the door, the whiskey untouched beside him. Outside, thunder rolled again. The storm had returned. That night, Mabel dreamed of Franco. He stood in the rain, face calm, eyes gentle. She'll destroy you, he told her quietly. What? She whispered. You think he's the only one who can ruin lives, Franco said, shaking his head. But you're the fire he doesn't know how to put out. She woke up sweating, the echo of his voice still in her head. And for the first time, she wondered if the thing she feared wasn't Dante at all. But what she was becoming because of him. The next morning, the mansion was restless again. Guards moved with urgency. Maya came running into Mabel's room, eyes wide. They found something, she said. Found what? Franco's phone. It had messages. Someone else gave him the idea to leak your name. Mabel frowned. Someone else? Maya nodded. A woman. They're saying she worked inside the Russo accounts. She's gone missing now. Before Mabel could respond, the door opened, and Dante stood there. His expression was carved from stone. I need you to come with me, he said. Mabel stiffened. Why? Because you deserve to see the truth. She hesitated. What truth? The one that ends this. They drove across the city, the world outside grey and slick from last night's storm. Dante said nothing. The silence between them was almost unbearable. Finally, the car stopped in front of an abandoned pier. Dante got out, motioning for her to follow. Inside the warehouse, the air was cold and damp. 2 of his men stood near the center, holding a woman Mabel didn't recognize. She was trembling, mascara streaked down her face. Who is she? Mabel whispered. Dante's voice was quiet. Franco's informant. She sold your location to one of Costa's lieutenants. The woman shook her head frantically. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. I just wanted the money. Mabel stepped back, her heart pounding. Dante, please don't. He cut her off, his tone sharp. You think I brought you here to watch me kill her? Mabel didn't answer. He nodded toward the woman. She's not mine to judge. I wanted you to see what choices cost. This, he gestured to the trembling woman, is what greed looks like. Fear. Regret. It's what happens when people try to play gods in a world full of devils. Mabel stared at him. And what does that make you? He looked at her, voice low. A man who finally knows he can't save anyone. He turned away, signaling his men. Let her go. They released the woman. She ran without looking back, her footsteps echoing through the empty building. Mabel exhaled shakily. You didn't kill her. No, he said. I wanted to. But I remembered the way you looked at me when I killed Franco. Her throat tightened. You did that for me. He nodded. Maybe I can't be good. But I can be less terrible. She stepped closer, searching his face. Is that what you call redemption? He met her eyes. It's the closest I'll ever get. The sun rose red the next morning, blood-colored and quiet. For the first time in weeks, the city seemed still. The papers spoke of peace between the remaining families. Rumors said Dante Russo had struck an invisible deal, one that would keep blood off the streets for at least a season. No one knew the price. Mabel knew. It was him. His silence. His distance. The parts of himself he'd buried to keep everyone else breathing. He'd stopped coming to breakfast. He no longer joined meetings in person. He was fading, piece by piece, until even the house seemed to grieve him. Mabel couldn't stand it. That evening, she went to his office again. The door was half open, the room dim. Dante sat by the window, tie loose, a single candle burning beside him. You're leaving, she said quietly. He didn't deny it. The deal's made. I step back. They get peace. And you? I disappear. Her voice broke. That's not peace. That's exile. He looked at her then, and for once, his mask was gone. It's survival. The city needs to believe I'm gone for it to stay quiet. Where will you go? Somewhere far enough that my name doesn't matter. Tears filled her eyes. You can't just vanish. I already have, he said softly. She walked closer, shaking her head. You can't keep saving everyone and leaving yourself behind. He gave a sad smile. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. No, he said, his voice breaking slightly. If I stay, they'll come again. For you. For her. The only way you stay safe is if I stop existing. Mabel's heart twisted. You think I care about being safe? I know you should. She stared at him through tears. And what if I'd rather be in danger with you than safe without you? He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, the darkness in them had softened to something almost human. He stood and took her hands. Mabel Cruz, he said quietly, you are the only good thing I've ever known. Don't let me poison it by staying. She tried to speak, but no words came. He leaned in, kissed her forehead gently, and whispered, forget me. She shook her head. I can't. Then remember me as someone who tried. By dawn, he was gone. No goodbye note, no trail. Only an empty study, a half-finished glass of whiskey, and a single ring resting on his desk, the one he always wore. Mabel found it hours later. She held it in her palm, the weight of it heavier than gold. Maya stood beside her, silent. What now? Her sister asked softly. Mabel looked toward the horizon, where the morning light was burning the last traces of night away. Now, she said, voice steady. We live. She slipped the ring into her pocket and walked toward the door. Behind her, the mansion stood quiet, like it was holding its breath. Outside, the city stirred awake, oblivious to the ghosts it carried. And somewhere far away, a man named Dante Russo watched the same sunrise, alone, his hand bare for the first time in years. He smiled faintly, whispered her name once under his breath, and disappeared into the crowd. You made it this far, don't stop now. Smash that like button if you want the next episode sooner, drop your wildest theory in the comments, and subscribe so you never miss the moment everything falls apart or comes together.